I got something to tell you, baby. Don't get mad this time. If you want my wiener, you give me ease all up in my mind. Baby, please want my wiener. Oh, want my wiener. Won't you just want my wiener? Cause he really don't feel right for.
This thing's paying off dividends. Not only is it good for covering up that spot from last week that's still there that makes my chin look like Sergeant Slaughter's, it's actually apropos. It's fucking terrible for talking through though, so hello. We're going to be talking about the Fallout television programme today, specifically some outrage because, you know, the fan base is fucking exhausting. The tweet that started it was actually, you know, quite amusing, but, well, exhausting. Oh, by the way, if you're in or around the Huddersfield area this coming Sunday, the 5th of May, you can check me out at Tidal Wrestling at Parish, where I'll be getting back in the ring after half a year away, so very exciting. Do check that out if you can. Anyway, Fallout. Also, it should go without saying, but massive fucking spoilers for the show, just all the way through. Do you know what you get when you're obsessed with lore and references instead of good storytelling? You get a writer saying, oh yeah, Nate from Fallout 4 is the guy in power armor laughing at the war crime in the first Fallout cinematic, and then they have to retract it because they were more obsessed with the lore and making everything fit and going, everything's connected, everything's like fucking Star Wars, where every grain of sand on Tatooine has to have a backstory, and if you keep doing that, eventually someone's gonna laugh at a war crime. Every time I wonder if staying off Twitter is a good idea, I open Twitter and immediately confirm it. That was a joke. I never wonder if staying off Twitter is a good idea. But as I still use it to post links and occasionally slag off J.K. Rowling before scurrying away, I do give it a quick scroll and pretty much immediately confirm that nothing of value is to be found on that site. I mean, taking a look yesterday and people are treating a half-decent Nier Automata ripoff like the most crucial theatre of battle in a culture war that has a cringe toll in the millions. Once you're outside the bubble of the latest gamer controversy, you really gain an appreciation of how embarrassing it all is. This is to say that I explicitly went into the recent Fallout TV show with as little social media opinion getting in the way as possible. I just didn't want to expose myself to the same cringe circus we see when any geek-adjacent media comes out anymore. A bunch of whining nerdses finding any excuse to complain about how woke it is, impotent fury over minor canon changes that don't fucking matter, wanton misuse of the term Mary Sue, and declarations of the media's success or failure based on its projected political affiliation rather than quantifiable measurements of success or failure. For fuck's sake. I'm not sure how much of that or in what ratio has actually happened over Fallout, but I saw all the discourse around that Lord of the Rings show, the discourse around every single Marvel movie, the discourse around any non-white actors that dare to show up in Star Wars, the discourse around pronouns in Starfield, and it's all the same fucking shit. There's only one discussion about the Fallout TV show I actually paid attention to, as it blew up to the point where it was everywhere, and I actually do have a fair bit to say about it. I am of course talking about Shady Sands, and the outraged response from some fans to how it was portrayed in the live-action adaptation. A response that shows, to me, the difference between wanting a story and wanting service. First of all, let me explain that I fucking love the Fallout TV show. As a Fallout adaptation, it's not just got neat additions to the lore with some very fun references, but it's impressively reserved, holding back on a ton of iconic Fallout content rather than drown you in appearances from Deathclaws, Robobrains, and Super Mutants. If we're being honest, the adaptation shows more restraint and respect for the source material than Bethesda did when it plundered, called back to, and sometimes misapplied every single little thing it could for Fallout 3. As a comedy show, it's fucking hilarious. Comedy is subjective, so if you disagree with me, know that you're wrong. No, I'd never state your opinions for you unless we're talking about Dragon's Dogma, but personally, I laughed more with Fallout than I have with any other comedy I've watched in ages, though in the interest of disclosure I should point out, the comedies I've watched recently include the 2005 Bewitched reboot. But yeah, shit like the water pump joke, the brilliant naivety of the Vault Dwellers, the mileage they get out of power armor slapstick, this guy, I think the show is a genuinely good comedy. As a story, I was honestly hooked on it. Every episode built towards the next with just enough questions questions hanging to make me need to see where it was all going. It draws from the game's disparate plots while telling its own story that moves the overall Fallout narrative forward in ways not seen since Fallout New Vegas, though not quite as dramatic. The result is an original piece of Fallout media that, aside from a handful of continuity snarls, fits right into the series, deserving, in my opinion, of canon status. Again, it's more respectful and fitting than a lot of Bethesda's stuff. Also, Walton Goggins is in it. I don't have enough good things to say about Walton Goggins. One of the best things the show does is, despite its abundant humour, it really highlights how fucking horrible the wasteland is, demonstrating with cruelty what it does to a person in just a few days, and showcasing how fragile any form of respite is in a world gone apocalyptic. And this brings us to Shady Sands. One of the most iconic locations in the Fallout universe, Shady Sands' importance as the birthplace of the new California Republic, as well as its representation of hope in the post-apocalypse, can't be overstated. It was the closest the wasteland came to thriving in that game, a place that maintains a semblance of peace and has even bothered with farming as opposed to merely scavenging. In the brutal, unforgiving, fucking hard world of Fallout, Shady Sands has always been a welcome respite, for as much as the wasteland could ever offer respite. By the time of Fallout TV's story, Shady Sands is a carcass, a bombed-out nuclear crater. And here we come to what's really pissed off a good sector of the fanbase. In this now viral tweet, the fate of Shady Sands has been presented as wanton disrespect, a slap in the face to Fallout fans who wanted a Fallout show full of Fallout stuff for Fallout fans to recognise from Fallout. Personally, mate, I fucking love what happened to Shady Sands, fuck it. Look, there are a number of reasons for this, and we will go through them, but as I do, I want to ask you a question. What do you want from your video game adaptations? Do you want something that contributes to the story and moves it forward, or do you want a theme park ride of references and in-jokes designed to pop a niche audience? And, by the way, both are valid. Both can be great, but I do ask you think about what you want and if that's all you want. I'm a fan of the anticlimactic. If it's done right, a big monster heel losing a wrestling match in one punch after terrorising their rival for months is an anticlimax, but with great storytelling it can be a poetic end to a great story. It's one of my favourite tropes. I also like a bit of a tragedy. I dislike the constant need for a happy ending in media. The fact test audiences hated the original amazing ending for Little Shop of Horrors because the plant won really bloody aggravates me. The fall of Shady Sands makes sense as a tragic reminder that the wasteland is a fucking wasteland. A huge part of the story is the erosion of Vault Dweller Lucy's naivety, and Shady Sands ending in off-screen tragedy is the exact kind of heart sink to punctuate that, to really make her question herself, to question her belief that there could be something good built up there. It is indeed the drama of the piece. It's also important to note that Shady Sands' relative safety was always rocky, was always on the brink. In New Vegas, the NCR was spread so thin that whatever firepower it might have had, it could barely govern for shit, and violence was always its answer to most problems. It could be argued that rather than a curveball plot twist, the destruction of Shady Sands and collapse of the NCR is the only way things could have ended for them. And narratively, honestly, this is good for the NCR, I mean not in-universe, fucking sucks for them. In the show, we see that they, like the Enclave before them, are fallen but still clinging on, with a compelling sympathetic storyline, that bit's more NCR than the Enclave, that winds up far more interesting than a mere continuation of their inept democracy shtick, which we've seen already. Of course, there's more to Shady Sands' destruction than good old-fashioned societal collapse. In the series finale, we learn that it was Lucy's father, the freeze-dried Vault Tech scumbag Kyle motherfucking McLaughlin, personally orchestrated the annihilation of Shady Sands over some siphoned water and corporate-sponsored eugenics. And you know what that makes the show's emerging lead villain? An absolute fucking cunt. What really frustrates me about the way fans view Shady Sands as a slap in the face is that it suggests they never wanted a story and instead were focused primarily on the meta-narrative. They didn't want to see what the writers had to say for themselves, they wanted to see how they treat the source material. The viral tweet practically states that was their motive for watching the show. And if watching a show simply to see how effective a Xerox it is entertains you, by all means go for it, but clearly it's leading you to be disgruntled with your media a lot. What I mean to say is that if you care about the story being told, the person you need to hate for the fall of Shady Sands is this asshole. You know how you put over a villain in a way that not only makes him a threat, but a cowardly, petty, vile piece of shit who you want to see get his ass handed to him? Have him take away something good, completely, and in the most loathsome way possible. I hate this cock. His screen time in this first season is limited, and for almost all of it, his villainy isn't even apparent. But within 10 minutes of seeing who he really is and learning the pathetic motives for nuking an entire population, he becomes one of the most detestable bastards in the entire Fallout universe. The delicious taste of Scorpion Energy. A Creedle and Crabnuts product, now available in wet. You can be a smark and blame the writers, or you can care about the story being told and hate this piece of shit. And hey, if you really need the fan service, they had that shot of New Vegas at the end for you. Yeah, it was pretty fucking cool. It's important to add that anticlimaxes, tragedies, and subverting expectations aren't inherently good things. Just doing that shit for its own sake is no less shameless than packing a show with referential in-jokes for their own sake. It's all about earning your payoffs, or lacks thereof, and I do believe, for the reasons stated, plus the fact it's just a damn well-written show, Fallout TV has most certainly earned what it did to Shady Sands, and will continue to do so as future story builds toward a confrontation with the man who destroyed it. The biggest issue I have with some of the backlash I've seen is the suggestion that Shady Sands couldn't be fucked with at all. The one big scene about it has been isolated outside the context of the show's themes, and very much outside the context of how it fits into the storyline. None of that matters in the face of Fallout TV daring to not revisit familiar locales and show us more things we recognise from the video games. The very concept of Shady Sands not being preserved for our pleasure is treated as offensive. There's nothing wrong with a circus of fan service. There's loads of it in our media now. Endless crossovers and shared universes and events and products full of stuff that you recognise and are familiar with and have always loved and will always love, because it'll never change. Well, war may never change, but Fallout does, when it's allowed to, and it's so rare to see an adaptation now that actually moves a universe's story forward rather than reboot it, retell it, and ask you to remember it. Fallout TV has its callbacks, and they're great, but I truly believe it's the first bit of media to genuinely advance Fallout's world building since Obsidian's narrative updates in the aforementioned New Vegas. Compared to Bethesda, whose Fallout games can be very, very good, I like them, but they're not conceptually ambitious in the least. The television show is far, far, far closer to the spirit of the series' original creators. You know, the ones who changed things from every single game, every single time they did one. Fallout changes. Things rise, things fall. Obsidian reminded us that the world moved on from bottle caps in Fallout 2 and introduced new currencies before Fallout 3 resurrected them because familiar content. It reminded us that when factions fall, they can be gone, or altered so dramatically as to be unrecognisable. These are the things that were once again forgotten, until we had an entire video game dedicated to reinforcing the idea Fallout was a static playground in which Fallout never changes, it just gets more in-app purchases.
Country roads, take me home.
Oh, I will say one thing for Fallout 76 that actually backs up the TV show. Given half a chance, a bunch of you wankers would nuke Shady Sands. Gamers never change. They didn't have to destroy Shady Sands, but the way they did it was brilliant as far as I'm concerned, and the reasons were equally so. Obviously you may disagree on the subjective matter of good storytelling, but let us at least say that the destruction of any location in a story set years after the last visit to a violent wasteland is at least on the table. And let's agree that it's okay for things to move on. They should. It's absolutely ridiculous that in thousands of years, Tamriel hasn't changed. And in a way, it's a shame that the Elder Scrolls developers did get Fallout, because as soon as they did, shit stopped changing there too. I'm well aware I have axes to grind with Bethesda, some professional, some personal, but they do make good playgrounds. Genuinely, I don't mean that as a diss, they make fun playgrounds. I'm just happy that the TV show remembers that Fallout is absolutely capable of more than that. Stephanie here again via the miracle of our award-winning ADR. With a point I've been saving for last, a point about retcons. I know some people watching this video have been screaming, but they retconned it throughout the whole thing, and my answer to that is, so? Sometimes retcons happen, especially in adaptations. You've got to develop it for a new audience, possibly reset some things, and in order for the universe to just move forward in general, things have to change, and sometimes that clashes with continuity, and sometimes that's okay. I mean, the game's never said everything stayed the same forever, and one thing I absolutely will push back on is another memetic tweet or comment or whatever it was that said the writers retconned it out of spite, and no, grow up. Not everything is about you. And that really hammers home the point about people sort of obsessed with the story behind the show as a product, as opposed to a story, which is what the writers actually did it for their story, not to get under your skin. The arrogance of that is off the charts. Speaking of which, thank God for me.